Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where my intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models in mainstream media. So my intention is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing remarkable things in the world. You see, contrary to mainstream media, it is my belief that Black men are actually thriving and experiencing unprecedented levels of success in the world today. And my goal is to showcase and highlight Black men who are blazing new trails in all segments of society. And my guest today is a brother who is doing just that. His name is Robert Wesley, and he is a program management leader at Boeing. He's also the host of the Brothers in Aerospace and Defense podcast. He holds an MBA and a Bachelor of Science degree from Howard University. And he's a member of Black Executive Men, which is a group I definitely support. So it is my honor and privilege to welcome Robert to the show. Hello, Robert. How are you?
I'm doing good, Michael. How about you?
All right, man. So I'm super excited to have you on the podcast because one of the main reasons for my optimism about the future is technology. I believe technology is leveling the playing field for anyone to create the life of their dreams. So today we're going to be talking about some of the exciting things that are happening with technology and how technology can open doors for anyone who is willing to embrace it. Yep. So before we jump into your work, let's start off with a few icebreakers. So first of all, tell us where you're from.
Yes, I'm originally from Jackson, Mississippi. So, from down south, made my way up north. I feel like I've gone from Mississippi to DC to Connecticut, now back to DC area. So,
all right,
like the middle ground of like East Coast.
There you go. So tell us a little bit about your immediate family, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, so I have my wife here. We're actually just welcomed a new addition to our family. So we have a 2-month-old now.
Wow.
Name's Raylan. So we have also a 2-year-old as well. So we have my son Aaron and my daughter Raylan. So that's the immediate family right now in the DC area.
Nice. So name a woman who has shaped you into the man that you are today.
Repeat that question again.
Name a woman who has shaped you into the man that you are today.
I feel like it's going to be, I think it's easy to answer that because it has to be my mother as far as, shaping kind of who I've become. But I think, just setting that foundation of our household and, how she, did everything for our household. I'm an only child, so it was only me, but I've had different experiences playing soccer, overseas, in the States, traveling with other soccer groups in our travel teams, and just had a lot of experiences within high technology. STEM has always been a great interest of mine, and I've got my mechanical engineering degree from Howard, so I've used that platform to further my intentions and in integration as far as my love for technology in itself.
Gotcha. So what's your mom's name?
Lavera.
Hello, Lavera. You did good. You did really good. So now I'd like you to name a man who you look up to and admire.
I would probably name a couple. So I think the men that are in my life right now that I really look up to. So one being my father-in-law, and second being my father himself. I think those two men have really, shown me how to lead a family and household forward. And with me being kind of a newly growing father right now with two children right now, but they've shown me blaze a trail for me to really help follow and even extend beyond that as far as what they've done and what I can possibly do for my family going forward.
Nice, nice, nice. So, if you were going to be trapped on an island for 30 days and you could only take one book with you to read, what book would you take?
One book I would read. That's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. I feel like I do most of my reading now on my phone, so it's kind of hard to kind of go revert back to
So, one audio
hard
book you could
copy.
listen to.
But a really good, interesting book that I've been reading lately is Your Brain Weighs 500 Pounds by Derek Pledger. So I love the kind of quick snippets of the mantras and things that he shared in that book. So I am really enjoying that book right now. So I think I'll take that for right now.
Nice. Now, do you like movies?
I do. I'm a big Marvel fan. So
So name one of your favorite movies.
I mean, obviously has to be Black Panther right now. So the original. So yeah, I think that was something that open society's eyes as far as like a lot of Black Marvel characters, and just that entire cast, that entire director, um, that entire filmmaking group was people of color. So I love just seeing that and embracing that as I move forward in my career path, and love to emulate that in other areas.
And man, it was so well done. Oh my God.
Yes, yes,
Just every aspect of it. And again, I'm a big Marvel fan too.
yep,
And to see how they took that character and the energy of the movie for
yep,
me felt culturally black. I mean,
exactly,
it just
yep.
felt. I mean, I was like, dang, this is what it's supposed to be like. So super excited about the next one coming up too. So it should be
hmm
great. So let's do a couple of sentence completion. So complete this sentence.
Yep.
I really love to.
Play soccer. I've always been a big soccer buff growing up. So, soccer and basketball were my two loves sports. I feel like once I didn't reach that 6 foot realm, basketball kind of went out the door. So, soccer has always been there for me. I love, running and, playing outside, and, that's always been a love for me. I still play to this day. So I have teammates of mine that I, play with at Howard, that we, have a small pickup, 77 side, co-ed, men's leagues that we're super just made to this day. So I love that.
Nice. My superpower is.
Resilience. So I have a no, I'm not going to give up on anything. If it's something that I want to go do, I'm going to do it regardless of how many times I fail, regardless of how many times I, get redirected. I think that is something that, not a lot of people have, but it's something that is, you know, as I look myself as a leader, that's something that I look at other leaders, great leaders that I've, had the opportunity to learn from. They've all had that, that trait for them.
Yeah, powerful trait. I am proud of.
My family. So, we've grown from a family of 3 to 4, and I feel like we haven't really hit a hitch in, the transition between the two. My son loves his little sister, which is, amazing to see him growing up this young, just knowing he always wants to see his little sister, wants to play with her, wants to, hold her, hug her. And so I'm just proud of my family, especially my wife. I think she's probably the rock of our household right now. So, I can't say enough about, how much I praise and, love her.
Yeah, and kudos to you for being a great dad already. I can tell. I can tell. So last sentence completion. The future is.
Autonomous. I think everything autonomous, whether it's, across air, land, sea, and space, I think that is the future of technology and the future of our world right now. I think, even as they're expanding habitable life outside of Earth, they're using autonomous, vehicles and platforms to explore, deep sea space and underground, underwater, to see what we can do to accommodate the space constraints that we're starting to see across the world.
Nice. So there are some people who are pessimistic about the future, while others are pretty optimistic. Where do
Hmm.
you fall on the spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future in general?
I think I'm pretty optimistic. I'm an optimistic person by nature, so I look at things with glass half full. I like to, see the best in people before, unfortunately, sometimes they may burn you or something like that. But, you give them a second chance to see, how they either can course correct or, you could adjust your angle and your activities with them. But, I'm always a glass half full. So I love the future of our technology, especially. um, this is a day and age where we're seeing a lot of, AI, autonomous aircraft being created specifically for the betterment of humanity. So I love to see that and love to be part of that in my career and then also external as well.
Hmm. So I wrote a book titled The Cure for Onlyness, a Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And in the book, I talk about some of the unique challenges that we as Black men have to deal with when we're in spaces as the only person of color. So
Mhm.
I'm sure you've probably been in that environment. So I'm curious, how do you handle that? And is that an issue for you?
I think it's always going to be an issue. I think when you're in spaces that you're pushing the realm of what is the norm, what has been the norm, is going to be a little tension. So I think you have to have that network that you've created, that circle of trust that within either your organization, your personal life, or somewhere you have that free space to either vent or just bounce ideas off of someone and really get a good understanding of how things are moving forward, because you got to get into the right mental headspace to really thrive in those environments, to push barriers, because as you're trailblazing you want to make sure that others are able to follow you or you bring others along as you grow in your career, and look at the future generation, because I think that is something that you know is a responsibility for senior leaders as today to make sure they're reaching back and thinking about the next generation, especially as Black men.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'd like you to go back and think about teenage Robert. What was teenage Robert like?
I think he was a lot of I was reserved. So I think right now I'm pushing the bounds of my own, circle of comfortability, being, on podcasts, on, creating a brand and, really thriving in my own voice and understanding of where I could push the realm forward. But I think my teenage self was really, reserved and more so on the other side of not wanting to take risks. So I'm more of a risk taker now because, like I said, it's not only about myself right now; it's also my family. So I want to make sure that I'm building, generational wealth and making sure I'm setting an example for my children to, see, what is possible for you, and not to really just settle for the mediocrity of, what is going to be easy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're obviously a pretty smart guy, and I'm curious if you were surrounded by other smart guys growing up. Now, the reason that I asked that question is
Hmm.
when I was 6 years old, I was separated from my mom and
Hmm.
I had to go live with my grandparents. And during those 7 years that I was with my grandparents, I was a pretty smart guy. Read a lot of books, studied in school, but I didn't have any friends. I was kind of alone and isolated and kind of geeky, kind of nerdy. After leaving my grandparents' house, I moved back with my mom. And for the first time, I had some friends. Now, my mom was living in a housing project. So my friends wasn't so studious, shall I say. Uh, didn't like going to school, skip school, that kind of stuff. And of course, it was more important for me to have friends than it was to go to school. And
Mm.
so, in essence, I basically dumbed down to be with my friends. It was that important to me. And I think that's something that we don't maybe talk about in our community, that as
Mm,
Black men, we want to fit in and to, have these groups that we belong to.
yeah,
And I think there are a lot of our young men who gravitate toward not necessarily gangs, but shall I say bad environments, because they don't want to not fit in.
yeah,
And so I think we hold ourselves back at times intellectually, because for some of us it's like being smart ain't cool.
mm,
And so that's what I did. I again, I literally dumbed down because I knew my friends who were, C and D and F students. I didn't want to get rejected by being a straight A student, so I became a C, D, and F student. And again, it was a negative experience, but at the same time, it was a positive experience because as a young Black man, it was a young Black kid. It was the first time I had people that cared about me. So again, I'm just curious, as you were growing up, the kids that you were surrounded by, what were they? Were they like you?
yeah. They were actually like me. So my best friend that I grew up with, across the street from me, we've been through thick and thin and everything. Best man at my wedding, he's actually a neurosurgeon. So, and his younger brother is actually an anesthesiologist. So it's surrounding yourself with great people is gonna, help you elevate yourself. We, obviously went on different paths as far as schooling, things like that. But I think growing up, we had that camaraderie of, hey, you're, going to school, doing your thing, and I'm doing the same thing in a different realm. But, we're always checking in on each other, make sure, we were right across the street from each other. So it was a really easy to, create that bond, and it was, definitely lasting. And it was other people within our neighborhood that we grew up with, uh, different, paths that they went on, but also we all, graduated college, we all graduated high school. So, we were, same, similar thinking, how can we best elevate ourselves, for the future? Because, thinking of people from, small kids, down south kids from Mississippi is, it's not a lot of, possibilities that is really, presented to you initially. So you have to either make your opportunities yourself, or, make sure that have that drive in you, because it's going to be, you're going to need it.
Man, that's great, man. Having that support system and friends that you could grow with intellectually, that's pretty powerful. Now,
Yeah.
so you mentioned college. So why did you choose Howard University?
That's always a great story of mine, because I would, like I said before, I played soccer while I was in college. So I went on a bunch of recruiting trips to like NC State, other colleges, and, Duke and others. But something stood out with Howard, and I didn't know this when I went on my recruiting trip, because we had some other, older individuals from Mississippi. They went there. I conveniently went there during homecoming. So everyone talks about the homecoming at Howard, hands down the best homecoming. I didn't know that going into it. So I, myself being the younger Robert, I was like, all right, let's go explore this, trip. And I went during homecoming week, and I'm seeing so many people of color that, look like me, are educated and well versed as sport. And on top of that, you have the homecoming activity. So, after the recruitment trip, that was my decision was made. I was like ready to, I already committed my application, and I was just ready to go to Howard from there. So I think, that was made my decision really easy for me.
Interesting. I was divorced, and my daughter, who was 13, was living in Corpus Christi with her mom, and I was
Hmm.
living in Houston. So my daughter calls me up one day. She said, "Dad, can I come live with you?" I said, "Sure, come on up." So I took her to I can't remember who was playing, but I took her to her first Black football game, right?
Hmm.
I
Yep.
remember we were sitting in the stadium. She goes, "Hey, I've never been around this many Black people." Because Corpus Christi is my primarily Hispanic and white.
Hmm.
And so when she came to Houston, that was the first time for her being exposed to so
Yep.
many Black people at once in one environment. So I had a great time, but I thought that was interesting that she made that comment.
Hmm.
So,
Yep. Yep.
with that being said, why did you choose to become a mechanical engineer? Have you always been handy fixing stuff, or what drove you to become a mechanical engineer?
I was a Legos guy growing up, so I was a
Ah,
Legos kid. So I was always building something, or trying to build something that is. Um, And so that was really piqued my interest within the STEM realm. I initially, thought I was going to be an architect. So I was actually, my initial major when I submitted my application was within architecture because, I love, the building that, design, build it, look the whole process through. Um, and then this is another funny story. I found out that this was a 5-year program at Howard. So I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to do 5 years and play soccer. So I was like, yeah, let me switch it to a 4-year degree. So that was where I switched it to mechanical engineering, where I was like, it's still a lot of differences there where you get to use a lot of my hands, be hands-on and build things, but it's on a more engineering route. And it was 4 years. So that was the other major thing. I was like, I'm not staying in college no longer than 4 years. So
Now, with that being said, are you pretty handy around the house?
I am, yeah. So I usually, everything that either breaks or, breaks down, that is, I'm usually trying to fix it before I call a, major, technician or someone to come in, that contractor afterwards. But
Well, my wife says that she married me because I can fix things.
I mean, it is helpful. So
One of the first gifts I gave her, she had a townhouse and she went out of town and she had this big hole in her sheetrock in her garage.
yeah.
And I actually went over and fixed it and patched up her sheetrock. And she was like, "Oh, I'm marrying you." All
Yeah,
right, so let's
my
switch
wife.
let's switch gears a little bit. And let's talk about Brothers in Aerospace and Defense, your
Hmm.
podcast. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Brothers in Aerospace and Defense is really, we thought about the name because it's two brothers as far as myself and Dwayne Allen, who are, people, two, black men that are within the aerospace industry. Dwayne has over a decade of experience within, Raytheon and, Raytheon Technologies now that they are, and I've been within, working with United Technologies before they merged with Raytheon, and now currently with Boeing. So it's, two people that are giving their take on the latest topics, really hot points within the aerospace and defense industry and where we see the future going. And it's specifically from a technical aspect as well as a business aspect. So it's really breaking it down for people to really understand, technically how things are really made. Like if you're explaining, how an airplane flies, from a person that's a layman, they might not understand how things are really, pulling together for the airplane. But from a business standpoint, like you understand, why people are making certain decisions that they do because there are things to drive a business forward that are really paramount to make sense. So we're taking it from that aspect and really enjoying it, just having a conversation between the two of us. So I'm the technical expert and Dwayne's the business expert. So was something that we thought of during our time working together with our mutual career coach, and we're loving it. So.
Nice, nice. So what's the best part about hosting a podcast for you? What do you like most about it?
I think the best part is really getting your viewpoint out there because I feel like sometimes within especially just the aerospace industry, you don't hear a lot about the highly technical things that are really going on. It's more secretive because sometimes it has to be because of the security clearances, but other times it's not a lot of people discussing it as really prevalent. You hear a lot about like the high tech companies like the Microsofts, the Nvidias, and others, Apples that are, doing the, smaller technologies, but aerospace and defense, it's like you have, people going to Mars, you have, vehicles flying to other, spaces, things like that, where it's not as heavily talked about within, mainstream media, like some of the other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm a huge fan of science,
Yeah,
space, technology, and one of my heroes is a guy named Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist. Do you know that guy?
I have heard the name. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, again, he's an astrophysicist, and he's probably right now the most recognized astrophysicist out there, right? So just a brilliant guy. And the fact that we've got a black guy that's actually teaching people some of the stuff that he teaches, and whenever they have some science related thing, they he's on CNN or Fox News or whatever. But he's just a
Hmm.
brilliant guy. Just
Yeah.
absolutely love this guy. Listening to him. Obviously, don't agree with everything he says, but I just love his brilliance. He's just brilliant. So I'm curious, are there any engineers or scientists that you really look up to?
So I look at it more from a business standpoint. So I look at some of the Black CEOs that I have the privilege of either working for or working with. And I look at Ted Colbert right now within Boeing, as he's running the defense, space, and security business, and looking at his career path and looking at others that are really blaze a trail for more Black senior, high C-suite leaders out there, and giving a face to this is what is possible for future generations, because this is something that someone that looks like me and is in this position and running a highly technical company. So those are the type of leaders that I really look at and uh, look forward to engaging more and learning from, because that is something I definitely aspire to, but I also want to make sure that the future generation is also seeing other people that look like them that are doing great things within the aerospace and defense industry, specifically within STEM.
Yeah, and what's the guy's name that you just mentioned?
Ted Colbert.
Colbert?
Yeah, Colbert. Yeah.
Colbert. Okay, because I want to look him up because I always like finding people like that just to. I might reach out to the brother and say, "Hey, man, you need to be on my podcast." I've got you recorded so I can pull that up.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Technology. Where it's going, what do you see? What do I see? And I want to first of all start off with something that just fascinates the heck out of me, which is electric cars and self-driving capabilities.
Yep.
I'm just kind of geeked out about that. So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are about electric cars and self-driving stuff.
No, electric cars are I feel like that's going to be, gas cars are going to be a thing of the past, probably in the next, 10, 15, 20 years, because, it's not only polluting our environment, but also it is not as efficient, because, all the, bad, emissions that we're putting out from these vehicles. Electric cars are more efficient, quicker, and it it just makes more sense from the environmental standpoint.
Yeah.
So I love the technology. I think I first experienced it, from thinking about how EVs and things like that can happen within college. I think it was my junior, senior year. We did a project on, what is going to be possible for EVs in the future. And, back then it was just a thought that, maybe this can happen in the future. Maybe it will catch trend. But as engineers, we were thinking about, hey, this makes most sense. How can we make this, happen from a operational standpoint? And how can we build a vehicle to, operate just on just a battery? What type of battery needs to be in it? How does it manufacture? How can we place the battery specifically in different places that makes most sense, that, if something were to happen, an accident happen, it's not going to cause a either major explosion as it interacts with other parts of the vehicle. So, love EVs, huge component of it. I love the expansion of EVs these days, because so many more companies are, making electrical vehicles, that, it is the thinking of everyone's on the same mind frame of making sure that we're thinking about the future of the planet. Self-driving, I think that technology is already there and is working pretty seamlessly, but I think it needs more trust from the customer standpoint, because the consumer is so used to having the handheld or controlling them themselves, that it's hard to release control because of so many X factors that are going on in the world. And it will be a lot easier if multiple vehicles are just operating, self-driving, versus you have a few self-driving vehicles here and there, but you have some of these vehicles that are man drivers, where it could be, some things might happen from a man standpoint, that it might be a lapse, millisecond here there, that the robot or the chip or the software might need to update or switch to really get a sense of what to do in that maneuver. So I think it's just from a customer standpoint, people just need to learn to trust the technology.
Yeah. And so for those of you who are watching this video and you're not familiar with electric cars, here's the thing. They're not going anywhere. A lot of people think that electric cars are a trend, shall I say, a fad, and are going away. No. Every major car manufacturer is now manufacturing electric cars. As a matter of fact, there are some states that are now requiring gas consuming cars to be eliminated by a certain date. So it's happening. If you go to places like Finland and places, I mean, they've already pretty much switched over. Everything has to be electric vehicles. So they're here again. And I personally think it's exciting because, I mean, again, you mentioned, you know, the environment and all that kind of stuff. But number one, I think they're very cool. Number two, I believe as the technology improves, because it's always evolving. It's just like computers, right? Companies are always doing updates. So they're going to constantly keep updating this technology, and I think it's just going to keep getting better. I personally would love to have one, and it's on my dream car list to get one. Not sure which one I'll get yet, but just know that technology is here to stay. Right? It's here to stay. As a matter of fact, you know, there are places in Vegas now where they have autonomous buses that there's no people driving the buses. The buses are picking you up and taking you around the city. So it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. So even that, you know, the truck drivers, those are starting to be more autonomous now because, you know, that freight industry is experiencing so much, you know, volatility as far as, you know, drivers, you know, shipping, you know, different packages and, you know, truck freights. And, you know, autonomous driven truck is much more easier to transport and can drive all hours of the night versus, you know, you have to rest the drivers but so much of the time because you want them to be, you know, awake, safe, and really aware of, you know, what they're doing is driving. So
yeah, not only that, autonomous drivers don't get drunk. don't fall asleep at the wheel.
Exactly.
lots of benefits to that. And again, and a lot of people don't realize that electric 18-wheelers and big trucks like that's the next big thing. I was reading a report where they will be able to, the driver will actually be at the office driving the truck.
Yep.
I mean, that's amazing to me. So it's all coming. It's all coming. Now, I just read, and this has been a couple of years in the making though, but the Federal Aviation Association, FAA, has given approval to a couple of companies that are building flying cars.
Yep, that is true.
Flying cars. So what are your thoughts about that?
No, I love the technology. I wrote about it. I think the eVTOLs, electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that are, you know, starting to be more of a household norm, like the Whisk vehicles, some other, you know, European, you know, manufacturers that are making some, you know, great vehicles that are, you know, the flying taxis. That's the term that everyone's utilizing right now, flying taxis. And that is something that's going to be easy transportation back and forth for avoiding traffic or even avoiding, you know, just the normal hopscotch trip, like 2 or 3 hour trip that you want to take. It can be done in like 30 minutes or less from just, you know, flying from one place to the other. So I love the technology. I'm excited to see how they're going to manufacture or figure out the space constraints in the sky, because you have the airplanes, you have the helicopters and other, you know, vehicles that are already in the air, and what is going to be that dedicated space in the air for these type of vehicles, because you don't want them flying too low because they might hit like the high skyscrapers, but you don't want to fly them too high because they want to be at the right altitude to make sure it makes most sense from a, you know, operational standpoint.
Yeah, my understanding is actually the FAA has already mapped that out. Because not only for that, but also for drones, little small drones.
Yep.
Probably have mapped out, okay, your drones can fly basically on this highway. You know, your electric taxis will go on this highway, you know, and stuff like that. So pretty exciting. Matter of fact, I saw that Uber is launching a whole fleet of their flying taxis, I think starting in San Francisco, maybe. I think I saw it.
Yeah, it's somewhere on the West Coast first. That's, you know, West Coast always gets the cool things first, and then it makes their way over to the East Coast.
So here's the question though, Robert. Would you own a flying vehicle?
Depends on the price. I think that's the piece of
it. If you could afford it,
Mm-hmm.
If you could afford it, would you want to own one?
I would, hands down. I think it would be much easier, from a flying standpoint, because it's not going to be as many, first movers in that market. Uh, if you're comfortable with the technology, I think that's the other piece of it that you want to make sure people are going to be trusting of it. I mean, it's a similar thing with the, EVs, is that you got to trust that the vehicle that is going to do what it's supposed to do, and then
Right.
the driving piece of it is going to do what it's supposed to do. So, uh, consumer trust is going to be the big thing. And then, like you said, the FAA having that approval in place, that's the other big hurdle. It's the FAA and the government policies to make sure that it lines up to how these are really going to operate in the space that they're going to operate in.
Yeah, I think what's exciting, and one of the drawbacks when you start talking about these electric vehicles, is the propellers and the noise that they make,
Yeah.
when they fly. But my understanding is they're supposed to be coming up with some quieter technology. And again, I just think it's going to evolve to a point where, are you old enough to remember the Jetsons cartoon?
I was going to mention that. That is something that I see coming to the really fruition fairly soon with all the technology coming up.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's happening, man. I tell you, it's happening. Now, another interesting company that I find just fascinating is Boston Dynamics and the autonomous robots. Have you done any research into that in that segment, the
Are these
robots?
the robots that they use to kind of do the different tricks and flips and things like
Yeah.
that, where they're doing different computing or interacting with different animals and things like that?
Yeah, and this one, they're actually training them to work in warehouses to just
Mm,
go and pick up stuff and move
yeah.
stuff and all of that. They're training them military to basically be soldiers now. I mean,
Mm.
they're doing some crazy stuff. But Boston Dynamics has some pretty fantastic looking stuff. There's the one robot, I don't know if you've seen it, that does the backflip.
Yep, I've seen that one. Yep.
Yeah, that's like, wow. How do you get the thing to do that? That's pretty fascinating. So let's jump into another space.
Hmm.
Space tourism. There are a couple of companies
Yep.
that are going to allow you to actually spend time in space, like a
Yep.
space hotel kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, Me personally, I'd do it in a heartbeat if I had the money. What are your thoughts about that possibility?
So this might be where I'm drawing a little bit of line where personally I maybe I wouldn't be the first few that go up there right now,
Yeah,
but yeah, I would definitely like the capability of having that you know ability or capability to spend time in space. Like I said, seeing DARPA, which is a defense organization that funds different new technology programs, seeing them fund projects to build a railway to the moon, as far as, and then a full ecosystem that's going to be um, manufactured on the moon as well. It is really great to see. I'm not sure the time frame. I can't remember the time frame on top of my head, but it's really great to see that technology come to place, because we have a space constraint on the Earth. So that's the other big piece of it, where we need to make some spaces or make some technology work for outside of Earth. And whether that's, other planets, or just, testing things on the moon just for right now, I think that is great just to see.
yeah. Now, one of the coolest stories I saw, I think it was last year, there was a problem on the International Space Station. I don't remember exactly what happened, but they needed a special tool to fix this problem or whatever. Well, they've
Hmm.
got a 3D printer on an International Space Station.
Yep.
So they literally just emailed the specs, printed the tool on the space station, and repaired it.
Yep.
Again, 3D printing, again, one of those technologies that is
Hmm.
literally changing the world. I mean,
Yep.
people may not understand or know this, but they're 3D printing houses and buildings and
Yep.
food. So
Yep.
it's
I'm not
absolutely,
sure how edible that is, but it's a possibility.
but it's amazing what's happening. So, with that being said, we can't talk about technology without talking about AI.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
what's your thought about AI?
AI, I feel like that's going to be the major connection point for all the new technologies, especially autonomous ones, because that's going to be the brains of everything. That's going to be how it interacts with humans. That's going to be how it interacts with other objects and people, places, how it takes commands, how it, deciphers what command to do next. And it's going to be that communication system for, how we go back and forth with these new generation robots and others. So I think it's, really paramount on having that ability and capability being as broad as possible, because it has to interact with so many different things. And I know the government wants to take it one way, the personal consumer wants to take it a different way. So I think it's going to be multiple variations of how these type of AI softwares are going to be developed and integrated and executed.
Now, I think the biggest fear is too many people have watched Terminator movies and they're worried about Skynet
Yep.
taking, taking over everything.
Yep.
What are just your general thoughts about AI and the downside, if you will? What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's more so just personal fears and consumer trust being that main thing where like you said, people have seen Terminator, people have seen like Stealth and others where they think the robots are gonna go rogue. And it's not gonna be like kind of a off switch or kill switch to to make sure that you're to have control. I think that's where a lot of Americans in general just love having control of things and making sure that you are in a space where you are able to pivot and shut things off if worst case scenario something does happen or it takes the wrong command and keeps going forward. So I know as an engineer, it's multiple triple quadruple redundancies are built in place for these type of technologies. So I don't have that fear, but I can see how some people that might not know how to that from that piece of it, how it's really built and how it will operate.
Hmm. Now, you wrote an article about urban mobility,
Yep.
smart urban cities and all that. Obviously, we have challenges in our communities and so forth. So, how do you see technology maybe helping improve our communities?
hmm I mean, you mentioned it earlier, as far as smart buses, smart railway systems. You see the metros and other things like that, where it is all that will be autonomous, in my belief. And that's where I think the technology is going for the future. It's just going to be a smart city 2.0. And so this entire ecosystem from, a full government landscape is going to be fully autonomous. And you could either, pay for things autonomously. Its cars are really going to go away. A lot of things are pushing towards like chips and things like that, whether that's integrated into your skin. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I see where the technology is going in that space because they want things just to be seamless. Like you walk into the railway station, you could just take the train to wherever you want to go. You already have an understanding of where to go, and or you could kind of dictate or advise the system where you want to go. So it'll take you there, and you just drop off, and it's like a seamless whole society that you're building from that technology.
Yeah. Now, I did see and didn't get a chance to experience it, but Whole Foods had a deal where you could log in on your phone and you kind of check in as you walked into the store.
Yep.
There are no salespeople. You
hmm
walk around the store and you just grab stuff, and the store knows exactly what you're picking
Yep.
up, and then it just charges to your account. You just walk in,
hmm
grab your stuff, and walk out.
Yep.
That's kind of cool to me.
Yep. Those are the Amazon stores. So yeah, I think that's the first of its kind. And that's the first, phase of, something being, fully autonomous, where it's like it's no policing or get a better understanding of, how you're paying for something. There's no risk of theft because the store is really tracking everything. It's tracking your movements, it's tracking, what you're putting in your cart, how it's scanning and stuff like that. So like you said, that's only the first phase of things where they're just testing the balance of how it integrates with the public and how frequently it is being used to expand it as necessary.
Now, just kind of looking at it from an investor standpoint
Hmm.
and your understanding of technology, because there's always, if you can get ahead of it, you
Yep.
can kind of ride this capitalistic train that we can get on. Is there any technology that you see out there? You go, yeah, you might want to look at that as an investment. Is there anything out there that you see that you might want to point? I know you're not giving advice. Just kind of, is there something that you would like point? For example, here's a perfect example. Just my beliefs, since everything is going to autonomous cars and self-driving, the companies that do the LiDAR radar stuff, to me seems like, I need to look into that because everything's going autonomous with this technology. So
Hmm.
just from your perspective, anything that kind of stands out to you that you might think of as an
Yeah,
investment?
I think a couple things stand out. So from a AI specifically standpoint, the chips. If you're an investor, and these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone. So
Right.
chips, they're always going to be needed. That's going to be a technology that's going to even grow even more because, as things expand and the usability of it grows, more chips are going to be needed. And
Mm.
even if you dumb it down even further, copper, a simple metal, but how much copper is used and across all these technology platforms is going to be dramatically increased with the usability of AI, autonomous vehicles, and all the other stuff that is used for it. Copper. I think that is two areas where I'm seeing the use case for it, growing exponentially over the next few years.
Mm. What about lithium? I mean, think about batteries.
Yep. Hmm.
I would think lithium would probably be something to look into too, because all these battery operated cars are gonna need lithium to make the batteries.
Hmm. Yep, yep. But
Yep.
they're also looking at other use cases for batteries there because the batteries have a shelf life and how to recharge them. That's the piece of it where they're looking to look at more other technologies there too. So it's I see the use case for lithium right now because they haven't developed it, but that is something that other companies and startups are looking at to shift because lithium does have some adverse effects later on down the line.
Mm, interesting, interesting. So now I want to give you an opportunity just to kind of, again, I'm excited about technology. Again, that's
Hmm.
just, what are some of the things that you might be excited about that maybe we don't get a chance to see?
Yep.
Anything out there that you can share?
Yeah, so I write about a lot of these new technology trends that from just aerospace defense in my weekly newsletter. So it's autonomous platforms for the future, and it's across air, sea, space, and land. And specifically from a sea standpoint, I think a lot of people aren't really aware of how much activity is going on in that space. You see autonomous platforms being built specifically for deep sea exploration, as well as other marine life explorations and testings and scientists, things like that, where it's not talked about heavily. You might see a new autonomous vehicle here and there, as far as autonomous submarine for warfare, things like that, but those scientists and everyday fishermen and things like that are using a lot of these technologies to enhance what they're doing because like I said, the sea can be steady, calm, or it can be monstrous at times, and we haven't even scratched the surface of how deep the sea is and how far we've gone to explore it. So that is something that honestly, between that and space, those are the two things where I'm most excited about seeing where the future technologies will go, because a lot of our things that are in sea and space right now are aging, and specifically in space, it's coming to a stage where we have to rethink of what we're doing with some of these satellites. The ISS, like you mentioned before, is coming to end of use life, and what we're going to do next for that next space station or next ecosystem that we're putting out there into space is going to be great to see. So I think those two spaces, those two domains, and specifically, are the ones that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and I just found out the other day, I didn't know this, that they're actually going to crash the space station in like
Yep.
2034 or something like that.
Yep. Hmm.
Just like drop it in the ocean.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And SpaceX got that contract as far as building that spacecraft that will help safely crash it so it doesn't, harm any, habitable, land areas on Earth right now.
Ah, wow. Yeah, fascinating stuff. So now I want to pivot just a little bit, and I want you to speak directly to the brothers who may be watching this
Mhm.
video. And again, as an engineer,
Yep.
you take some schooling, but just kind of talk to the brothers out there who may be kind of going, maybe I want to be a part of STEM, maybe I want to be an engineer. Give us some insights about becoming an engineer.
No, so I'll say two things. One being you don't have to be, super smart in math just to be an engineer. There are definitely, different areas that you can contribute to the STEM field in general. So, don't let that be a barrier to you, to make it, make you think that you have to be, a mathematician or a super genius in math just to make sure that you could be an engineer. So there are areas in engineering that you could thrive in, and you have to be coachable and teachable. And so that is the piece of it where anyone can learn anything. So I don't look at, an obstacle as a hindrance to someone, but I look at it as more of just a challenge. And the second being, failure should be looked at as an advantage. I look at it as an advantage to myself, as well as others. But it could be really informative as far as for someone growing in their career, because you get the sense of you fail now, but you grow so much from that failure that it makes you even stronger as you move forward in your career path and what you want to do as a person moving forward. So those are the two things I would, tell people that are looking out there, looking to get more interest in STEM, or looking to get more engagement in that area. And I say, feel free to reach out to me if you have any other further questions. I'm happy to have chats with people just about my STEM journey, and just to get a better sense of, what is possible for yourself as you move forward.
Yeah, and that comes back to your superpower, which is resilience. So yeah, we're gonna fail, folks. As a
Yep.
matter of fact, one of my mentors, a guy named Dr. Wayne Dyer, he taught me something that's really stuck with me. He said, "There's really no such thing as failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the non-attainment of a desired result,"
Yep.
which is a really powerful way to look at it, because obviously there are things that we want to accomplish and sometimes we don't. So
Yep.
doesn't mean we failed. We simply didn't attain the desired result. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know from my own experience as someone who overcame homelessness and divorce and bankruptcy and being a high school dropout. So yeah, I get it about looking at it from the standpoint of, for me, everything is a lesson.
Yep.
So I can either learn from it, it can make me bitter, or it can make me better.
Yep.
I choose to let it make me better. So as you're thinking about any type of challenge or adversity, just think of it as a learning experience. It's teaching you something. So
Mm-hmm.
look for the lesson in it. And with that being said, now I want to give you an opportunity. So how can people check out your podcast, or sign up for your newsletter? How can people reach you?
Yeah, so I'll send you the link to the newsletter,
Okay.
Michael. So I'll send you that so they could sign up there. It's easy to subscribe. It's like 2-button click where you just subscribe, share your email, and I'll send you all my newsletters that are going to be published weekly. I did take a little hiatus with, having a newborn lately, so I'm going to be kicking that back off for the month of July to get it back up and running. With everything as far as autonomous platforms newsletter. For the podcast for Brothers in Aerospace, we're on Podbean, we're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube. So we're pretty much everywhere that you could think of to where you listen to podcasts. So that should be, really available there. And just from a LinkedIn standpoint, you can reach out to me personally. I'm always happy to, engage people on LinkedIn, or get feedback there, or get further engagements on that platform. So you can look up me, Robert Wesley. I have PMP MBA in my title, so I should be one of the few there. But just feel free, and I'll send you that link too, Michael, so you could just share that with your audience as well.
Got it. So I will be putting a direct link below your video here. Which would you like,
Yep.
your LinkedIn podcast, or your LinkedIn profile, or your podcast profile, for just a link underneath your video?
Yeah, I could just do the LinkedIn, because that
Okay.
has links to the podcast and everything in there on my
Gotcha.
LinkedIn. So
Gotcha. So I'll put that link. All right. So now here's your opportunity just to share any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience.
Yeah, man, I feel like I ended on a good thing as far as fail fast, fail often. That is something I live by, but also I love the mantra of being coachable, and having someone on your team that might not be the smartest, might not be the most astute at thing, but having them have that drive and have that being a team player and having them be coachable. I think that will take a lot of people very far in the world because leaders love to have someone that wants to be coachable, that is coachable, and can learn from them as a leader, but also them as a person, and to help them achieve even more. I think a lot of people that have hit that glass ceiling, maybe have thought in their career paths that they know everything and they want to be the smartest person in the room all the time. I love not being the smarter person in the room because I have that ability to learn and grow from so many others that are in that space that I'm in. So uh, I would say be coachable and look to learn from others as source. Are two things that I will leave everyone with.
Well, Robert, it has been my absolute joy having this conversation. I could talk to you for hours because I'm a
Yeah,
tech
I
geek.
know.
I love that. But again, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the podcast with us. And once again, you're another one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic about the future. When I see brothers like yourself that are doing such remarkable things and making an impact on the world, that just lights me up, man. And that's why I do this show, to showcase men like yourself who you don't normally see in mainstream media. So continued success in everything that you do. If there's anything I can ever do for you, don't be afraid to reach out, man. I'm right here for you to support you in any way that I can.
And I really appreciate that, Michael. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be on this show. I think you have a great platform that you're utilizing to uplift and make known so many people that are everyday people, but not a lot of people really get to engage and learn from. And so you're sharing that with the world, and I think it's just a great platform to be on. So I'm really grateful to and honored to be here.
All right. And I'm really glad you came. So we had a great time. So again, this has been another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes. So always remember, you have the capacity to create an extraordinary life, but to do so, you must be willing to put forth extraordinary effort. All right. We'll see you next episode. Take care.